The tape recorder clicked off. For a moment, the entire church was silent. Not quiet. Silent. Then a child's voice began to sing. Soft. Thin. One trembling hymn note, but the sound wasn't coming from the tape. It was coming from the choir loft above us. The note stretched across the empty stone church, climbing higher and higher, until the sound started to tear apart at the edges, like paper burning. Father Michael Vance froze. Across the table, Clara slowly lifted the headphones from her ears. The tape recorder was still spinning, but nothing was playing, and the voice was still singing. Michael grabbed his flashlight and aimed it toward the loft. The beam cut through drifting dust. Broken hymn stands, collapsed chairs, empty shadows, no child. The singing stopped instantly. The silence that followed felt wrong, heavy, like the church itself was holding its breath. Clara leaned closer to the recorder. The VU meter twitched. Then the speaker crackled. A whisper crawled out of it. "You shouldn't have wound the clock." Clara went pale. She hadn't said that out loud. The Church of the Silent Veil had been abandoned since 1972. 23 choir members vanished during a late-night rehearsal. No bodies, no struggle, no sign that anyone had ever left the building. When police arrived the next morning, the church was empty, except for one thing: a tape recorder sitting in the choir loft. Still running, still recording. The diocese sent Father Michael to bless the grounds before demolition. Clara came for a different reason. She wanted to hear what the walls remembered. They set up their equipment in the sacristy. A reel-to-reel recorder, a microphone, a camera, and Clara's jury-rigged EMF meter. The air inside the church felt wrong. Not cold, not damp, dry, like breathing dust. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the EMF needle slammed against the end of the dial. The recorder's motor began humming, but the sound wasn't normal. It was too deep, too slow, like a giant bell vibrating somewhere underwater. Then, somewhere inside the nave, a pew creaked, slowly, deliberately. Michael picked up the flashlight. Clara grabbed the Polaroid camera. They stepped into the dark church together. The flashlight beam slid across rows of empty pews. The creak came again. From the very last row, Clara raised the camera. Flash. For less than a second, the church exploded with white light. And someone was sitting there, a small figure, child-sized. Its head tilted sharply to one side. But where the face should have been, there was only smooth black stone. The darkness returned. The pew was empty again. They ran back to the sacristy. The door slammed shut behind them, hard. Neither of them had touched it. The recorder hissed. Their breathing filled the tape. Then another voice joined it. Dry, ancient. The clock is wound. The church archives were mostly gone, but one thin folder remained. Inside was the final journal entry of the priest who led the choir. October 17th, 1972. The choir of the Silent Veil attempted a forbidden ritual known as the Vespers of Unbinding. The purpose wasn't fully explained, but the final line of the journal was written in shaking ink. They did not leave the church. They became the church. The stone drank their song. Beneath the entry was a list of names, 23 choir members, every one of them marked with a black check. That night, the church began to move, not violently, carefully, as if something inside the walls was learning. When Clara boiled water, the kettle turned on by itself. When Michael opened his Bible, the pages flipped to the same passage every time. Psalm 137. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and wept. Then the whispers started. At first, they came from the walls. Fragments of hymns, broken prayers, children humming softly in the dark. Then the voices began using their memories. Michael heard Clara calling his name from somewhere inside the nave. Clara heard their son Ben laughing above the choir loft. Neither of them moved. They knew better. Whatever lived inside the church wasn't just haunting them. It was learning them. On the third night, they climbed into the choir loft. 23 wooden chairs stood in a perfect semicircle, all empty. all covered in gray ash. In the center of the room sat another tape recorder, older than theirs. The reels turned slowly on their own. A voice emerged from the spinning tape. "You are the key." The temperature dropped instantly. Ash lifted from the floor and began swirling through the air. The chairs creaked. One by one, shapes began to appear in them. Tall shadows, thin as bones. 23 figures, the lost choir. Waiting, sing with us. Michael fell to his knees. Clara finally understood. The ritual had never ended. The choir had opened something. And whatever lived inside the church was starving. It needed a voice, a living one. Clara picked up her recorder. The red light blinked on. The shadows leaned forward. Waiting, Clara closed her eyes and began to sing. Not a hymn, a lullaby. The one she used to sing to her son every night. Her voice trembled, cracked, but it was real, human. Alive, the choir shrieked. The shadows twisted violently in their chairs. Rung. The walls trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. But Clara kept singing. The lullaby echoed through the church. Soft, gentle, full of grief. One by one, the shadows collapsed. Ash scattered into the air. And the crushing pressure inside the church slowly faded. When the song ended, the church was silent again. A normal silence. Empty. They left at dawn. The forest looked ordinary again. Birds sang in the trees. Michael drove without speaking. Between them sat the tape recorder, dark, dead. But just before they reached the highway, the recorder clicked on by itself. A child's voice whispered from the speaker, Ben's voice. Soft, sleepy, night-night mama. The tape stopped. Clara stared out the window. She didn't tell Michael the truth. She could still hear the song, not outside, inside her mind. One perfect note, still echoing, waiting for someone else to listen.